Okay, hello, good morning, students. Let us move further to our next topic, that is CRZ, uh, Architecture and Town Planning, second semester of third year Civil Engineering 2019 course. So, yesterday we have studied Special Township, then we will see SEZ, and now we will go through CRZ concept. So basically, what is CRZ? Coastal Regulation Zone. So this is likewise development control rules in our urban areas are there. Accordingly, some rules and regulations are there for the coastal areas. We'll see some historical background behind this CRZ Act or notification. We'll see some information, and then we will discuss about the present legislation regarding CRZ, where we can construct, what are the different zones, what is permitted, what is not permitted, like that. So we will see the historical development. The India has long coastal line of 7,500 kilometers ranging from Gujarat to West Bengal, and two islands, Andaman and Lakshadweep. Our coastal ecosystems provide protection from natural disasters such as floods and tsunamis to the 250 million people who live in our coastal areas. So considering the eco-sensitivity of the coastal areas, we have made these acts, we can say. So coastal waters provide source of primary livelihood to 7 million households. That is why we have to conserve the coastal areas. Otherwise, people will wish to construct different projects in the coastal area or just near to the, we can say, beach. But that will affect the natural ecosystem, and it will not be sustainable development. So our marine ecosystems are a treasure trove of the biodiversity, which we are only beginning to discover and catalog. Thus, our coastline is both a precious and natural resource, an important economic asset, and we need to robust progressive framework to regulate the coast. So, the Ministry of Environment and Forest has released the CRZ notification in 2011, which has now replaced CRZ notification 1991. So in 1991, government thought of such kind of initiatives for the protection of coastal areas. They have come up with different notifications. They have modified it, amended it from time to time as per the requirement. And we will see the latest 2018 CRZ notification or act. So apart from that, the Island Protection Zone notification 2011 has been notified for the first time, covering the Andaman, Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep. So objectives, what will be the objectives? We can say objectives of this particular initiative: protection of livelihoods of traditional fisher folk communities, then preservation of coastal ecology, promotion of economic activity that have necessary to be located in the coastal regions. Then as a background, we will see how this particular initiative has started. The CRZ notification 1991, that you can Google or search on the Google. CRZ notification 1991 has been amended for 25 times up till now. And among the new features, it includes Goa, Kerala, Greater Mumbai, critically vulnerable coastal areas like Sundarban, mangrove area. Sundarban कुठं आहे माहिती तुम्हाला? गंगा नदी कोलकाताच्या तिथे जवळपास मिळते. तिथे सुंदरबन एक इकोसिस्टम म्हणता येईल आपल्याला, किंवा मोठं एक फ्लड प्लेन आहे, त्याला काय म्हणतो आपण, where silt is deposited near the coastal area. Then Chilka, Bhitarkanika, Orissa, Gulf of Khambayat, Gulf of Kutch, Gujarat, Malwan, Maharashtra. So Malwan, you know, Malwan beach in the Maharashtra in the Sindhur district. Then Karwar, Kundapur Karnataka, Vemnad Kerala, Koringa, East Godavari, Krishna Delta region. I was talking about the Delta region of the Ganga river, Sundarban. Andhra Pradesh, Gulf of Mannar. You should know the topographical features of the earth in the coastal area. Gulf, what is bay, Tamil Nadu. Then definition of CRZ area. So here you can see the background for our study. We can say CRZ area now includes the water area up to 12 nautical miles in the sea and entire water area of tidal water bodies such as creek, river, estuary, etc. So these are the some terms from the coastal area. Creek खडी असते, river, estuary त्याचं ते opening आहे त्या पद्धतीने आहे. So restriction on the fishing. So question is asked whether through this notification there will be restriction on the fishing. CRZ notification does not impose any restriction on the fishing activities. Coastal zone management plan. So what is coastal zone management plan? We have to manage all these activities with the conservation of biodiversity or the ecosystem in the coastal area. So fishing is not directly banned, but there will be some rules and regulations. The CRZ notification 2011 ensures that concept of coastal zone management plan. You may be asked to explain CZMP. So that we will see. It will be prepared with the fullest involvement and participation of local communities. No development zone. काय असेल बघूयात आपण. Okay. Where we will not be able to construct anything. The no development zone definition has been changed. It is reduced from 200 meters from the high tide line to 100 meters only. हे जे 12 nautical miles म्हटलेलं आहे that you can refer or compare with the our kilometers. त्या पद्धतीने समुद्रातलं जे अंतर असतं ते nautical miles मध्ये मोजलं जातं. Similarly, high tide, low tide हा जो विषय आहे coastal area मध्ये that we need to understand and accordingly high tide जी लाईन असते जिथपर्यंत high tide येते समुद्राची लाट येते ड्युरिंग हाय टाईड तिथून 100 मीटर पर्यंत आपल्याला नो डेव्हलपमेंट झोन असेल. बरोबर आहे. म्हणजे एकदम जो कडेचा पाण्याचा भाग असेल आपण जसं बीच जर तयार काढला तर त्या पद्धतीने तुम्हाला 3 लाईन अशा काढता येतील. पहिले 100 मीटर्स, पुढचे 200 मीटर्स, पुढचे 300 मीटर्स आणि त्या पद्धतीने वेगवेगळे झोन तयार केलेले आहेत. So this has been done to meet the increased demands of housing, of fishing and other traditional coastal communities. Propose enactment to protect the traditional rights of fishermen. That we will see. As per the recommendations of expert committee headed by the Swaminathan, government should enact a law to protect the traditional rights and interest of the fishermen and coastal communities is under proposal. So that is a background. Now already act is in force. So this law would be somewhat along the lines of Forest Right Act. फॉरेस्ट मध्ये पण बरेच बंदी असतात, बऱ्याच गोष्टींना प्रोहिबिटेड असतात. बट विथ हँड इन हँड म्हणता येईल आपल्याला विदाउट डिस्टर्बिंग दी इकोसिस्टम. Some tribal people can get the benefits of the forest also. So Fishermen Association have supported the recommendation. The Ministry of Environment and Forest has already prepared such a draft law in this regard and put it in the public domain for the comments and suggestions. तर त्याच्या पुढची प्रोसेस आता म्हणजे एक ऍक्ट तयार झालेला आहे, त्याच्यावर मॉडिफिकेशन्स आलेले आहेत. हे फक्त मी हिस्टॉरिकल बॅकग्राऊंड सांगत आहे. रिगार्डिंग कोस्टल झोन रेग्युलेशन लॉ, There has been a demand from Fishermen Association that instead of having a notification under the Environment Protection Act 1986, government should enact a coastal zone regulation law to be passed by the parliament. This is because a notification does not provide considerable flexibility to the executive. The ministry acknowledges and appreciates that a law passed by the parliament will enhance the public confidence and trust that amendments are introduced after the adequate debate and discussions. So this is about the historical background. We'll see further. On February 1991, the Ministry of Environment and Forest issued a notification under section here you can see. On February 1991, the Ministry of Environment and Forest issued a notification under Section 3 of Environment Protection Act 1986, seeking to regulate the development activity of India's coastline. The approach adopted by the first notification was to define the high tide line and coastal regulation zone. Thereafter, specify the activities permitted and restricted in the vicinity of the CRZ. This regulated zone was further divided into 4 categories. So we are going to see all these things in the actual act. There have been about 25 amendments to this notification 1991-2009, some of which have been based on directions of the Supreme Court in 2008. Ministry of Environment and Forest brought out a new draft CRZ that evoked such much criticism from all sections of the stakeholders. Eventually, this notification was allowed to lapse and Ministry brought out fresh notification in 2010, which after much discussions and deliberations was finally passed as a coastal regulation zone notification 2011. The current notification has several new positive features. So आता आपण हे जुनं पाहिलं अर्लियर डेव्हलपमेंट्स आणि त्याच्या पुढे आता 2011 त्याच्या पुढे 2018 CRZ त्यातल्या महत्त्वाच्या प्रोव्हिजन्स आपल्याला बघायच्या आहेत की what is CRZ, what are the different zones, which activities are permitted and which activities are not permitted in that particular zone. So it widens the definition of CRZ to include the land area from high tide line to 500 meters on the landward side, जमिनीच्या बाजूला समुद्रापासून, as well as the land area between high tide line to 100 meters or width of the creek, whichever is less on the landward side along the tidal influence water bodies connected to the sea. The technical language आहे त्या पद्धतीने distance त्यांनी ठरवलेले आहेत. The CRZ also includes for the first time water area up to 12 nautical miles in the sea and the entire water area of the tidal water body such as creek, river, estuary without imposing any restrictions of fishing activities. Thus, the main change in the scope of the regulation has been to expand the CRZ to include territorial waters as a protected zones. This may have been in response to the criticism that while the earlier CRZ notification regulated development on the coastal stretches, it did not per se deal with the pollution of the sea in the direct terms. So, as per the requirement, the content is amended. The concept of hazard line has been introduced. While the notification merely states that the hazard line will be demarcated by the Ministry of Environment and Forest through the Survey of India by taking into account the tides, waves, sea level rise, and shoreline changes, this concept owes to its introduction to the realization of natural disasters such as tsunami and floods that may take place in this zone. In 2010, MOEF signed MOU with the Survey of India for undertaking this exercise over the period 4.5 years and estimated about cost of 125 crores. The concept of classification of CRZ into 4 zones has continued in 2011. So CRZ 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 categories. The area is divided into these 4 categories. There are subcategories also. So CRZ 1 काय असणार आहे? Ecologically sensitive areas such as mangroves, coastal coral reefs. Coral reef म्हणजे आपण पाहिला असेल वेगवेगळे जलचर प्राणी असतात बघा खाली आणि त्यांचे त्या वसाहती किंवा सेटलमेंट्स असतात. त्या तुम्ही बघू शकता एखाद्या व्हिडिओमध्ये. मँग्रोव्ह म्हणजे आपले खारफुटीचे जंगल असतात. दे बॅलन्स दी इकोसिस्टीम. साल्ट मार्शेस म्हणजे काय? साल्ट पॅनच्या जवळपासचा भाग आहे. टर्टल नेस्टिंग ग्राउंड. टर्टल म्हणजे कासव. समुद्राची ती इकोसिस्टीमचा भाग आहे. त्या पद्धतीने त्यांचं पण आपल्याला कॉन्झर्वेशन ऑर प्रिझर्वेशन करावं लागतं. अँड द इंटरटायडल झोन म्हणजे त्या पद्धतीने समुद्राच्या कडेचा जो भाग आहे पहिल्यांदा, दॅट इज कन्सिडर्ड ॲज CRZ1. Then again, CRZ2 areas close to the shoreline and which have been developed. Then CRZ3 coastal areas that are not substantially built up, including the rural coastal areas. Then CRZ4 water area from the low tide line to the limit of the territorial waters of the India. So CRZ4 has been changed from the 1991 notification, which covered the coastal stretches in the islands of the Andaman Nicobar Lakshadweep. Then MOEF has issued a separate notification titled Island Protection 2021, Zone 2011 in relation to these areas. A new category called Area Requiring Special Consideration has been created, which consists of CRZ of Greater Mumbai, Kerala and Goa critically vulnerable to the coastal areas of such as Sundarbans. So cleanliness of the clearances from the or obtaining the CRZ approval has been made time bound. Further, for the first time, the post clearance monitoring of the project has been introduced in the form of the requirement to submit half-yearly compliance report, which are to be displayed on Minister's website. So with respect to the least prohibited activities, one of the most important changes has been made, that of expanding the list of exceptions to the rule prohibiting setting of new industries and expansions of existing industries, while the earlier exceptions are limited to those activities which required access to the waterfront. 4 other exceptions have been now incorporated, which include project of Department Atomic Energy. म्हणजे यांना एक्सेप्शन दिलेलं आहे, की अशा प्रकारचे प्रोजेक्ट्स तिथे येऊ शकतात. Facilities for generating non-conventional energy sources and desalination plants, except for the CRZ zones on the case-by-case basis after doing an impact assessment study. So, whenever a large project is planned, then environmental impact assessment report is prepared. So, development of greenfield airport permitted only at Navi Mumbai. तर नवी मुंबईमध्ये तुम्ही बघितलं असेल की खाडीच्या कडेलाच म्हणजे वाशीची खाडी जी आहे किंवा नवी मुंबईच्या साईडला जी खाडी आहे तिथं एअरपोर्ट प्लॅन केलेलं आहे आणि तिथं बऱ्यापैकी चेंजेस झालेले आहेत. आपल्या क्रीकमध्ये किंवा हिली एरियामध्ये फ्लॅट एरिया करण्यात आलेला आहे, काही खाडी बुजवण्यात आलेली आहे, काही स्ट्रीम डायव्हर्ट करण्यात आलेले आहेत. सो सच परमिशन्स वेअर given. So reconstruction repair works of dwelling units of the local community, including fissures, in accordance with the local town and country planning regulations. जे जुने लोक राहतात कोस्टल एरियामध्ये त्यांना काही प्रमाणामध्ये परवानगी मिळू शकते. So another important aspect is the introduction of the coastal zone management plan, which will regulate the coastal development activity and which are to be formulated by the state government or administration of the union territories. Then in Greater Mumbai, the redevelopment of approximately 146 existing slums in CRZ area has been permitted. तर हे मुंबई सारख्या ठिकाणी स्लम्स सुद्धा आहेत, तर त्यांनाही परवानग्या दिलेल्या आहेत. So provided that the stake of the state government or its agencies in these projects is not less than 51%, redevelopment and construction of old dilapidated म्हणजे पडण्याच्या परिस्थितीमध्ये असणारे unsafe buildings in the CRZ2 area has also been permitted. Also, the floor space index or floor area ratio FSI prevailing in town and country planning regulations as on the date of the project being sanctioned will apply. In order to ensure that redevelopment of slums and dilapidated structures in Mumbai are done in the most transparent and accountable manner, the Right of Information Act 2005 will be applicable and auditing will be done by the Office of the Controller and Auditor General, CAC. The 2011 notification also lists out certain measures that have to be taken to prevent pollution in the coastal areas or coastal waters. While the CRZ notification 2011 has introduced several positive concepts seeking to protect the interest of the local traditional communities, it does have the few drawbacks, namely, although no development zone of 200 meters from the high tide line is reduced to 100 meters, the provision has been made applicable to traditional coastal communities, including fisher fall, thereby giving the chance for increasing construction on the coast and higher pressure on the coastal resources. This may be their personal, you can say, opinions. Disallowing special economic zone projects in the CRZ. There are no restrictions. We will check it through our new or at present जो ऍक्ट आहे त्याच्यामधून आपण ह्याच्यावरती डिस्कशन disallowing, okay, there are no restriction for the expansion of housing for rural communities. The CRZ notification 2011 is a major setback. Special efforts to include specific provisions to benefit fisher power community in all coastal areas and address the shortcomings of the 1991 notifications as specific coastal stretches. There is significant change in the new notification, but there is always need for further improvement. So you can see the present notification. So we are going through this unit number 6, SEZ, CRZ concept. One short question will be asked about the explain the major provisions of the CRZ Act or different zones of the CRZ, CZMP. Then again, which activities are permitted, which activities are not permitted, like this. And under practical also, we have discussions on special townships, SEZ, CRZ, and rural planning strategies. So even you can see that for the coastal areas or rural areas, we are taking efforts in different or many ways. Even in CRZ also, some points are considered for the rural development. So this is 2019. We can say new act or the notification. Under that, we will see the content. So here you can see January 2011 coastal regulation zone notification 2011. The central government declared certain coastal stretches as coastal regulation zone, that is CRZ, under section 3 of Environmental Protection Act 1986. Then forest and climate change has received representations from various coastal states and union territories besides other stakeholders regarding certain provisions in the CRZ notification 2011 related to the management and conservation of marine coastal ecosystem development in the coastal areas, ecotourism, livelihood options and sustainable development of coastal communities. हे सगळा विचार करून आपण त्याच्यामध्ये जे काही बदल केलेले आहेत ते आपल्याला याच्यामध्ये आता बघायचे आहेत. So various state governments, union territory administrations and stakeholders have requested the Ministry of Environment and Forest, Climate Change to address the concerns related to the coastal environment and sustainable development with respect to the Coastal Regulation Zone Notification 2011. So Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change had constituted a committee under the chairmanship of Dr. Sailesh Naik to examine various issues and concerns of coastal states and union territories and various stakeholders relating to the Coastal Regulation Zone Notification 2011 and to recommend appropriate changes in the said notification. त्याच्यामध्ये कमिटी तयार केली, त्यांनी ते बदल सांगितले, जे काय आहे ते आपल्याला पुढे अपडेटमध्ये ऍक्टमध्ये बघायला मिळेल. So whereas the report submitted by committee has been examined in the ministry and consultations have been held with various stakeholders in this regard. And whereas the draft CRZ notification 2018 was issued and posted in the website of the Ministry of Environment and Forest climate change on 18 April 2018, seeking comments and suggestions from all concerned. So whereas objections and suggestions received, so there is always scope for discussion, improvement, and taking objections, hearing to the affected people. Received a response to the above mentioned draft coastal regulation zone notification 2018 and have been duly considered by the central government. So now therefore in exercise of the powers conferred by the subsection 1 is clause details आहेत. So expert as respects things done or omitted to be done before such supersession, the central government in view to conserve and protect the unique environment of the coastal stretches and marine areas besides livelihood security to the fisher communities and other local communities in the coastal areas and promote sustainable development based on scientific principles taking into account the dangers of natural hazards, sea level rise due to global warming, do hereby declare the coastal stretches of the country and water area up to its territorial water limits, excluding the islands of Andaman and Nicobar, Lakshadweep, and the marine areas surrounding these islands as CRZ as under. So अंदमान निकोबार हे सगळे आयलंड जे आहेत ते एक्सक्लूड केलेले आहेत का मे बी कशामुळे ह्याच्यावर डिस्कशन झालं असेल कारण की ते एरिया ऑलरेडी छोटे असतात आणि देर इज व्हेरी लेस फॉर दी लेस एरिया अवेलेबल सो अकॉर्डिंगली दे मस्ट हॅव मॉडिफाईड इट अँड आपल्याला तिथे काय करायचं आहे की डेव्हलपमेंट पण करायची आहे बट विदाउट अफेक्टिंग दी एन्व्हायरमेंट अँड सो दॅट कन्सिडरिंग ऑल दीज थिंग्स the things are modified like this. The land area from high tide line STL 500 to 500 meters on the landward side along the sea front. So this will be considered as CRZ. So for the purposes of this notification, the high tide line means the line on the land up to which highest water line reaches during the spring tide as demarcated by the National Center of Sustainable Coastal Management Institute in accordance with the laid down procedures and made available to various coastal states and union territories. म्हणजे प्रत्येक गोष्टीवरती अभ्यास आहे तेवढा स्टडी आहे एवढ्या बारीक सगळ्या गोष्टी बघाव्या लागतात आणि त्या पद्धतीने त्याच्यामध्ये डिस्टन्सेस सगळ्या गोष्टी कोणत्या गोष्टी प्रोहिबिटेड आहेत कोणत्या गोष्टी आपण करू शकतो तिथं आपण ॲग्रो टुरिझम म्हणता येईल किंवा इको टुरिझम म्हणता येईल सस्टेनेबल काही पॉलिसीज प्लॅन करता येतील ते सगळा विचार याच्यामध्ये केलेला आहे सो सीआरझेड shall apply to the land area between high tide line to 50 meters or width of the creek whichever is less on the landward side along the tidal influence water bodies that are connected to the sea and distance up to its development along such tidal influence water bodies is to be regulated shall be governed by the distance up to which the tides effects are experienced, which shall be determined based on the salinity concentration of the 5 parts per thousand ppt, parts per million parts per thousand, measured during the driest period of the year and distance up to which the tidal effects are experienced shall be clearly identified and demarcated accordingly in the coastal zone management plan. So CZMP, provided that CRZ limit of 50 meters or width of the creek, whichever is less, shall be subject to the revision and final approval of the respective CZMP as per the notification framed with the due consultation process, public hearings, and environmental safeguards enlisted therein. And still such time CZMP this notification is approved, the limit of 100 meters or width of creek, whichever is less, shall continue to apply. So you have to read it again and again to understand the distances, the meaning, and its effect. So explanation is given for the purpose of this paragraph. The expression tidal influence water bodies means the water bodies influenced by the tidal effects from the sea in bays. Bay म्हणजे उपसागर, बंगालचा उपसागर म्हणता येईल. Estuaries, openings, rivers, creeks, backwaters. केरळमध्ये backwaters, lagoons खूप आहेत बघा. तुम्ही तिथे हाऊस बोट बघू शकता किंवा तिथे इव्हन त्या कॅनल सारख्या स्ट्रक्चर मधून ट्रान्सपोर्टेशन पण केलं जातं. लाईकवाईज आवर बसेस दॅट आर कनेक्टेड टू द सी. म्हणजे तिथली इकोसिस्टीम, तिथलं जे सगळं जे लाईव्हलीहूड आहे ते खूप वेगळ्या प्रकारचं आहे. ते आपल्याला त्या भागात गेल्यानंतरच थोडस हे सगळे मिनिंग, त्याचे इम्पॉर्टन्स समजू शकतात. सो वी शुड विजिट सच प्लेसेस टू अंडरस्टँड दी basics of all these things, like Malwan. The intertidal zone means the land area between high tide line and low tide line. The water and bed area between the low tide level to the territorial water limit of 12 nautical miles in case of sea, and water and the bed area between the low tide line at the bank of the low tide line on the opposite side of the bank tide or टायडल इन्फ्लुएन्स वॉटर बॉडीज. हे बऱ्याच टेक्निकल गोष्टी असतात, लिगल गोष्टी असतात, ह्या तुम्ही थोड्याशा लक्षात नाही ठेवल्या तर चालतील. यू नीड टू रिमेंबर दीज झोन्स, विच थिंग्स आर प्रोहिबिटेड अँड विच थिंग्स आर नॉट परमिटेड. So there was disturbance due to electricity failure. We will continue now. So classification of CRZ, you can see, for the purpose of conserving and protecting coastal areas and marine waters, CRZ areas shall be classified as follows. So CRZ 1, आता त्यांनी काय केलेलं आहे की त्या पद्धतीने CRZ 1, 2, 3, 4 आणि त्याच्यामध्ये काही ठिकाणी A, B, C, D परत सबसेक्शन्स तयार केलेले आहेत. सो वी कॅन सी व्हॉट इज CRZ 1. Areas are environmentally most critical and are further classified as under. CRZ 1A मध्ये काय आहे ते बघूयात. A shall, CRZ 1A shall constitute the following ecological sensitive areas and the geomorphological features which play a role in maintaining the integrity of the coast. Which play a role in maintaining the integrity of the coast. So that includes mangroves, coral and coral reefs, sand dunes, biologically active mudflats, then national parks, marine parks, sanctuaries, reserve forest, wildlife habitats, and other protected areas, salt marshes, turtle nesting grounds, horseshoe crabs and habits, seagrass beds, nesting grounds of the birds, areas of structures of archaeological importance and heritage sites. Then a detailed environment management plan shall be formulated by states and union territories for such ecological sensitive areas in respective territories as mapped out by the National Center of NCSCM, Chennai, based on the guidelines. Then CRZ 1B, so intertidal zone between low tide line and high tide line, CRZ 1B. Then CRZ 2, the developed land areas up to or close to the shorelines within the existing municipal limits. CRZ3 land areas that are relatively undisturbed rural areas. CRZ3A, such densely populated CRZ3 areas where the population density is more than 2161 per square kilometers as per 2011 census base. Then all other CRZ3 areas with population density of less than 2161 per square kilometer. Here maybe CRZ3C point will be there. Land area up to 50 meters from the high tide line or width of the creek, whichever is less along the tidal influence water bodies in the CRZ3. CRZ4, CRZ4A, CRZ4B. That we can see. Then areas requiring special consideration in the CRZ. So critically vulnerable coastal areas. Following coastal areas shall be accorded special consideration for the purpose of protecting the critical coastal environment and difficulties faced by the local communities. Earlier we have discussed. महाराष्ट्रातलं काय आहे मालवण, then Achra in Ratnagiri. CRZ for inland backwaters, islands along with the mainland coast. Okay. The prohibited activities काय आहेत बघूया की we cannot do such type of developments in this area. The following activities shall be prohibited within the entire CRZ, exceptions to those and other permissible regulated activities in specific CRZ categories. आता मुंबईमध्ये थोडेसे वेगळ्या गोष्टी असतील, शिथिल असतील काही गोष्टी. There must be some exceptions, but in other coastal areas, this will be applicable. So setting up new industries and expansion of existing industries, operations or processes. Then manufacture of handling of oil storage, disposal of hazardous substances. Setting up of new fish processing units. काय होईल, मशिनरी वापरल्या मोठमोठ्या तर त्याने मोठ्या प्रमाणात फिशिंग होईल and that will affect the ecosystem. So land reclamation, bunding or disturbing the natural course of sea water. Discharge of untreated waste and influence from the industries, cities. Then dumping of city or town waste. Port and harbor projects in high eroding stretches of the coast. Mining of sand, rocks. Then dressing or altering of the active sand dunes. So these are prohibited. The regulation permissible activities in CRZ. CRZ असला जरी कोणत्या गोष्टी परमिसिबल आहेत फॉर द डेव्हलपमेंट त्या गोष्टी आपल्याला बघायच्या आहेत की इन वी कॅन से considering sustainable development we can promote ecotourism activities, mangrove walks, tree huts, nature trails, temporary structures we can construct, tents we can say, identified stretches. हे सगळं बघून प्लॅन करता येतं. Then Construction of roads and roads on these stilts by ways of reclamation in CRZ1 areas shall be permitted. कंडिशन दिलेल्या आहेत. CRZ1 B मध्ये काय परमिटेड आहे बघा. म्हणजे एरिया स्पेसिफिक कोणत्या ऍक्टिव्हिटीज परमिटेड आहेत ते दिलेलं आहे. लँड रिक्लेमेशन बंडिंग shall be permitted only for the activities such as foreshore facilities. बऱ्याच गोष्टी त्या त्या एरियातल्या दिलेल्या आहेत that we can understand. Then CRZ2 मध्ये इथं आपण काय पाहिलं, CRZ1 चालू होते. CRZ1A 1B आणि आता CRZ2. याच्यावरती क्वेश्चन येऊ शकतो की विच ऍक्टिव्हिटीज आर परमिटेड इन पर्टिक्युलर विच झोन. हे थोडं थोडं तुम्हाला त्या पद्धतीने लक्षात ठेवावं लागेल. CRZ2 मध्ये कोणत्या ऍक्टिव्हिटीज परमिटेड आहेत. CRZ2 मध्ये या इथे दिलेल्या आहेत. CRZ3 मध्ये कोणत्या ऍक्टिव्हिटीज परमिटेड आहेत. Then regulations of activities for CRZ3 area beyond NDZ. CRZ4. Then requirement for clearance from Department of Atomic Energy Installations. And further part is CZMP, that is Coastal Zone Management Plan. हा काय आहे याच्यावरती शॉर्ट नोट विचारू शकतो. Then enforcement of this notification, कधीपासून इम्प्लिमेंट असेल किंवा इन्फोर्स होईल त्याचा डेट दिलेला आहे. एरियाज दिलेले आहेत. Areas requiring special considerations, critically vulnerable coastal areas. Then CRZ for inland backwaters, islands and islands along with the mainland coast. बऱ्याच गोष्टी क्लिअर केलेल्या त्यांनी. The CRZ areas falling within the municipal limits of ग्रेटर मुंबई. आता हे मुंबईसाठी मी म्हटलं होतं की थोडंसं आपल्याला वेगळ्या पद्धतीने बघावं लागेल. त्या पद्धतीने तिथे काही एक्सेप्शन्स दिलेले असतील. In order to protect and conserve green lung of the greater Mumbai area, all open spaces, parks, gardens, playgrounds indicated in the development plans within CRZ2 shall be categorized as no development zone and floor space index of 50% shall be allowed only for construction of civic amenities, stadium and gymnasium meant for recreational or sport related activities. Okay, construction of sewage treatment plants in CRZ1. Then conservation protection management framework for the ecological sensitive areas. Post your roll numbers.